live.
We're live. I'm Mo.
I'm Shane.
We finally got Shane on.
Yes!
Woohoo!
I was making a killer pinstripe board for the office.
Yep.
I decided to jump in.
Stepping our game up and thought he would hop on.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about what to expect and not expect during your first float, because there's so much talk about how amazing it is and how great it is that sometimes people are left a little disappointed from their first float, or they're just really confused going into it, or they think it can be scary because it's like claustrophobic or things like that. So yeah, we're just going to clear up some myths about your first float and give you some tips.
There's a lot of them. Honestly, when I first started floating, I had fallen in love with like a lot of the Joe Rogan material about floating. And he's talking about oftentimes some of the best experiences that happen in a float tank. And so I went into my first float like expecting some pretty far out stuff, but the reality is it's just a pretty peaceful, calm environment. Mm-hmm. And there was no crazy psychonaut stuff. So
yeah, it can take a long time to get to that.
It's almost
place.
Like if you wanted that to get to that place meditating, it's not going to happen your first time.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
You got to want to go there too. Like you could easily float your whole life and probably have pretty good normal experiences, like reduce stress and anxiety and that sort of thing. But
yeah,
it just depends on what you're after, I guess.
Yeah, you might not get to that next level unless you really intend on getting there and practice and work at it and do things to get yourself there.
Totally.
So even if you don't have like a mind-blowing experience though, it still is so amazing and so relaxing and just calming.
You sleep better, it feels great, and as soon as you settle in and get used to floating, it feels kind of like if you go get massages, kind of like post-massage, it's just like you reset and life looks a little different. So.
Yeah, but also the very first float, it can be kind of scary. Like,
way scary. I
remember you told me to try floating 3 times before I decided if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
And it definitely took me 3 times to get to a place where I was even comfortable being in the tank.
Yeah.
My first float, I had to leave the door cracked and the lights on so I could see, because I thought I was going to get trapped in there. And I did that the second time, and then by the 3rd time I was comfortable enough to shut the door, have all the lights off, and that was the first time that I ever really floated.
Yeah, I mean, even the second time oftentimes is like still settling in just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on kind of personality and how you're feeling when you go into the float center, but if you're a little nervous about it and you get in the center, your first float might just be purely getting used to the surroundings.
Yeah,
and what it feels like to float and be in a center. And so yeah, it's good. Three times is a great amount of tries to kind of see if it's for you.
Yeah, give it 3 goes. And on your first float, so what happens when you get to a float center, or if you're floating at home, well, if you get to a center, there will be people there, and everyone's so friendly at float centers.
Yeah.
They'll be able to answer any questions. They'll usually walk you through everything. But typically you would shower first before you got in the tank, just to rinse off any oils, any dead hair, dead skin, and it just helps keep the water cleaner.
Yeah. And
then you get in the tank, and there will either be music or lights playing, and they'll go off after about 5 minutes, and it'll be dark. And if you're at home or at a center, you can crack the door to let a little bit of light in, which is just kind of nice if it's your first time, so you can kind of orient yourself and just get comfortable and finding like a comfortable position in the tank.
Yeah. And
then once you're done, if you're floating at home, it's really nice because you can just float however long feels good to you. And yeah, it's really at your own convenience, however long you want to be in there, what time of day you want to float, morning or night. Where at a float center, it's just a little bit more limited, and so they'll have music or lights turn on when your float is up, and then you just get out, shower off, and be on your way. But some tips to relaxing in a tank and finding that calmness, especially on the first one, is try and ground yourself before you get into the tank. So I know you've told me this, when you first get in a tank, you just kind of sit still at first and let the water settle and take some deep breaths and then lie down. And that's really nice. If you are getting nervous, just focus on your breathing, like counting the inhales, counting the exhales. You also told me this, but to count backwards from 100 if you're in a float tank, and every time your mind wanders, start over again at 100. Yeah. And that just kind of helps center and focus your thoughts so your mind isn't just racing the whole time.
It trains your brain because as you're counting backwards with your breaths, you're like 99, 98. But then like if you get down into the 50s or 40s or whatever and you lose track, you have to start back over. And at first you're like, oh, I'm not starting over. I just barely forgot where I was. But then if you start over enough, you start to be like, okay, I'm going to stay focused and get all the way through this. And if you can get all the way down to 0, usually you're in a really good place.
Yeah, that's really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think I've ever made it there.
Oh yeah, it's worth it, but it's tricky.
Yeah, but it really helps to focus your thoughts.
I've got to say one other thing too, and we preach this a lot, but for me there's meditating floats where I'm trying to turn off my thoughts, and then there's some floats where I get in and I want to think, and you can intend to have one or the other and try for it, but if it's not working, like for instance, I've got in and tried to force myself to just meditate, do the breaths, count, turn off the thoughts, and I'm like, I want to think so badly, and then I just start thinking. So like at some point in your float, you don't have to fight it. Yeah. Is how I feel. So if you want to think about something, I feel like your thinking's even more powerful in a float tank. It's like there's less distractions. So
yeah, it's like focused thinking.
Yeah, so you can get in your first float and try and meditate and go through the steps and do the best you can. But if you want to think, I would say think.
That's a really good point too, because floating boosts creativity and it's really good for problem solving. So if you go into a float tank and just allow your mind to wander and just think about whatever's on your mind, you might come up with a solution that you hadn't thought of, or change your perspective, or something else might be brought up.
Yeah.
And if it's really pressing on your mind, like there's probably a reason you need to be thinking about it.
Yeah, and oftentimes if you think up front, it kind of burns it out. Like it takes away the urgency to think through some issues maybe you have or things happening in your day, and then it's easier to do the breath work and to go for the meditation. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it doesn't have to be a really deep meditation. You can use it however you want it to.
Just floating and soaking in the joint relief and the magnesium and all the above, it's going to be a great experience. So you don't have to have a great meditation to have a good flow.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another thing you can do to just kind of relaxing is doing a body scan. So starting at your toes, going through your feet, ankles, and just like checking in on every body part all the way up, and you can start to feel like where you're holding tension, where there's tightness, where you might be stiff. And that's really good for releasing physical tension or for pain and just kind of stretching things out and letting things go.
That body check, I do a similar thing, but oftentimes I'll tense up each part of my body in order and then let them all be really tense and then let them go. And that helps my body settle into it too.
Yeah, it helps you get relaxed.
Yeah. Oftentimes I want to throw it out. First timers, like, they're really worried about their head, and I feel like when you worry about your head, it makes it worse. The more you can just get in and like let your head go wherever's comfortable, it's not going to go too far under. It's going to be fine. But the less you can worry about it, the better off your head will be. So many people get in there like, I need a pillow. And you might need a pillow, but
I still freak out. I've floated tons of times and I still get nervous about my head. So I always use the Float Ease Float Halos.
I'll grab one.
Yeah, they're the
it's
best.
salty. We've been using it.
But they're like seriously the best thing in the whole world for holding your head up and just helping you relax your neck so you don't feel like you're...
Ours is salty because we've been floating with it.
Yeah.
But, so
salty ass.
I also feel like it could be different for
like
women with a lot a hair.
Oh yeah, honestly, like my hair pulls me down.
I wonder if hair affects floating.
My bun's kind of in the way, but you just go like that.
I've got no hair problems, so it's good.
No hair problems. Yeah, those are the best, and then you don't worry about your
Float Ease Halo.
Float Ease Halo. So I think those are... Oh, another thing, one last thing, is just play around with different positions. So if it's uncomfortable to have your arms down, you can put them up or like
How do you typically float?
I float with arms up.
Your arm up?
I'm arm up.
I'm arm down, and sometimes when it really doesn't work, I cross into the... It's weird.
I've never heard of that.
Seems like you shouldn't, but it works good.
I feel like it'd be more calming, like...
It's
like a pressure on you, kind of.
Mostly I float like this, but
whoa, I have to be arm up.
For real?
Yeah, for real.
Wow.
Tell us if you guys float arm up or arm down.
But never float face down in general.
Actually, I mean, well, okay, someone recently, I forget why, I'll look it up. They were having some like pain in their body, or maybe they were pregnant, and they floated on their stomach with a snorkel.
That's cool. Have a snorkel.
Yeah, just have a snorkel if you float face down.
Like swimmers, like.
That could actually maybe help your breathing.
It's a bad idea.
All right,
But-
I won't go off on a tangent, but I have a story.
Okay, that's funny though.
Okay, well, I think those are all of our best tips for first floats.
Yeah, and I feel like it's okay to get excited for your first float, but don't set the bar too high. It's gonna take a sec to settle in, probably.
Yeah,
And-
and definitely try it more than once.
Yeah, and I'd feel safe to say that you're probably gonna sleep better no matter how your float goes. Like the odds that you'll sleep better that night are pretty high.
I would
First time
agree.
floaters. So just you could kinda plan on that a little.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 of you, it'll work 100% of the time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's my only last bit, is expect to sleep better.
Yes, and try 3 times.
Yeah.
Before we go, there's a quick comment.
Okay.
Jonathan said a couple of things I did not expect on my first float. He said all of these things happened, but I still made it through. He said it was a great learning experience to prepare for my next floats.
Yeah.
He said the first thing that happened was he didn't realize that the water is very slippery.
Yeah,
So
silky.
he almost fell when he got in.
Well, that's
the
dangerous.
first time.
Yeah.
And then the second one, it's more of a tip. He said, don't get water in your eyes or it'll burn.
Oh,
Bam.
yeah.
So
Most of the time, centers will have like a wet rag or a spray bottle for your eyes, but I'm telling you, if salt gets in your eyes, it's gonna mess up 5 minutes of your float.
Yeah.
At least, probably.
Don't, like, pretty much just don't touch your face.
Yeah, don't touch this.
Because even if you
raccoon
touch
area.
your forehead, it'll, like,
It
can
can
drip
leach in.
into your eyes or, yeah. That's a really
That's
good
a great tip.
Don't
Thanks,
touch
man.
your face when
That
you're
was John?
floating.
yeah, Jonathan.
Thanks, John.
Jonathan.
Those are great tips.
And it is slippery. It's like, it's with Epsom salt, not sea salt, which is very different. And so it's really soft. And
It's like silky slick.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really slippery.
That's great advice.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah.
All
Is there
right.
anything else we need to cover? First float? What?
Not that I can think of. If you guys think of any other tips or have any questions, just comment on this video and we will answer them.
Yeah, even if it's not live, just throw a comment down and we'll reply.
Yep.
Well, that's
Okay.
cool.
That
Thanks for
was
letting me
cool.
join.
For sure. I'm stoked you did. We'll see you next Wednesday, 4:30 Mountain Time.
Yeah, have some good floats out there.
Yep. Happy floating.
Adios.